Hello everyone, I'm Tony Southcott, and today we're talking about the deadliest movie ever made, Antrum, and I'm going to show you all the sigils that I could find as well as get you some information on these demons. This is Baphomet. We're going to be talking a lot about this one over the course of the film. One of the things I'm hoping to accomplish is to show you guys these freeze frames where we get to see these sigils and try to translate some of them. I know I didn't get every little thing, so if there is a symbol that I show you that isn't discussed, I would love to see it in the comments. A lot of these are also one individual frame or two frames that go very quickly, so I'm just letting you see some of the things you missed. These symbols are everywhere, and this is Astaroth. Astaroth is basically the main demon for this movie, and you just see that symbol over 170 times if you count each frame. We're not going to cover information about every single time it shows up, just know that it is all over the place. Here we have some very beginning visions of Baphomet. And this is sort of a brazen bull type situation. Something that they could put someone inside of as part of a sacrifice. This child is also in the same Baphomet pose with his left hand. We're getting into some very, very slowed down footage. Things that you only see little glimpses of, like the dark figure rising. My money is that that would be Astaroth. Here in this next section, we're getting into a lot of symbols like the delta symbol or just simply a triangle. I was trying to find more about specific demonology relating to the delta symbol, and there isn't a lot. I know that in math it stands for change, it can be a symbol for heat, it can be a lot of different things, but this particular one doesn't seem to carry as much direct demonic meaning. Astaroth. In the lore, it seems that Astaroth is basically at the highest tier of demon, right up there with Lucifer and Beelzebub. Abyssus abyssum invocat is a Latin phrase that means a lot of different things. It can basically be like hell calls upon hell, the deep calls upon deep, and things of that nature. It's essentially saying that the more you seek hell, the more you'll find it, according to my translation anyway. It's a little hard to read it, but people come to this forest to kill themselves. That's saying they should get help. Astaroth! We're looking at a pentagram under that sigil as well, which you can probably pick up this book at Hot Topic. This is one I'm going to need your guys' help for. I'm very interested in it, but even after going through Lesser Key of Solomon and many others, I'm having a hard time figuring out what it actually is. At this point, you see the child laying down a sacrifice. Also a little visit from Astaroth again. Being that the main conceit of the movie is that this kid's dog's soul is in hell, it would make sense that he'd need to bring a sacrifice from the dog to keep them safe. Astaroth! Astaroth is actually kind of adapted from Mesopotamian culture. If you look up Ishtar, they are very similar. They kind of swap genders, though. I know it's a cheap shot, but I absolutely love just this little fade in the clouds where you get to see Astaroth or some demon type in the clouds here. It just looks so good to me, and I don't know why. Astaroth, being an archduke demon, is in charge of many legions of hell, apparently. This is a scene where I can tell they're trying to overlay something, but even whenever I edited the footage to try to make it clear, I couldn't exactly see what was going on here. It's very spidery, it's very grassy. Considering this is basically where Antrum is, or the name Antrum meaning where the devil essentially landed whenever he came from heaven, this site is pretty important. I'm finding a lot of symbols like this that don't have a very clear meaning, because most of the things in Lesser Key of Solomon are like the major sigils for like actual demons, not so much the little runes between. I would absolutely adore all of your help in finding out some of these. Please put them in the comments. Right now we're looking at a pentagram with various religious iconography in every corner. You got the Muslim one, Buddhist one, Indian, Christian, and Jewish. So they're just taking all of these different things into account. And here is where they are getting the information about Antrum, all these different pages and things going on inside the book. We're talking about protection prayers, talking about different incantations, and various ways to keep the demons at bay. I just thought it was interesting seeing how it is kind of a childish-looking book on the inside, but that actually becomes part of the plot later. And then Astaroth makes a little show on top of your prayer circle. It's a bad day at youth group. Astaroth! As we see them breaking ground to dig through the layers of hell, you get some really, really quick flashes of this black and white scene, which I believe that these are victims of some of the people later that we get to see, some of the demonic figures, but we don't get a whole lot of explanation, just those quick flashes. Astaroth! Bet you didn't see that one coming right in the middle of the screen. I actually do love that shot. It's particularly pretty. And then we actually get to see the face. This is like one frame. This looks to be done from the inside of the pit because of that moon symbol in the background. This one is a bit more subtle because it's more of a transformation between takes. You can see the cross in the background, then immediately it flips over, and then after the scene kind of goes back to normal. This is one of the few things that's super cheesy in this movie, but it was so ridiculous I had to include it. Just look at this squirrel. There's something wrong here. Once again, we're looking at the delta-shaped tent. It seems very intentional. We're also backing up on one of the suicidal bodies in the woods, or rather a successful suicide. I spent a lot of time watching this movie on like 40% speed, so these cigarette burns threw me off a few times at the movie. It's just effect. I stated earlier that some of these drawings were childish, but these are awesome. I love these. I wish I could draw like this. Just some demonic creatures as we get into the meat of the story. Nephistus basically means the opposite of holy, the opposite of sacred. Also, we get our first look at some of the demonic figures that are just in the forest. Just a little tiny glimpse. Nothing really to write home about in that one. We talked a little bit about how these were a suicide forest, and this man is preparing himself to commit seppuku, but he is interrupted by the child and his sister. It's implying that this ground is so unholy that it can help you get to the point of death. Astaroth! These scratchings of Astaroth and various other demons were supposedly made with a sort of clear film over the original film, which makes it a little bit more, I don't know, potent for the whole Deadliest Movie Ever Made. Here we have a few more of those demons just off in the forest. I said I'd show you a bunch of different ones. And now we're looking at a very metal drawing of Cerberus, which Cerberus is probably one of the more well-known entities like Guardian of the Underworld and so on, three-headed dog. Hercules fights him, that sort of stuff. We're also looking at some other mythological figures entering here, such as the boatman who takes souls across the river Styx. You know, usually you need to cover your eyes with 2 coins, that sort of thing. Pay the boatman upon death rites. And this is when the kid sneaks out and actually gets to see what's on the boat. I'm curious if they are the people that are in the black and white scenes, or if this is someone completely new that we haven't seen before. Astaroth! In these scenes, we're seeing some sketches from the notebook about demons around a fire, as well as here in a moment we're seeing a demon rise out of the pit, which this could be the Antrum pit, or it could just be another pit showing that they're climbing into different levels. These are the 2 main demons climbing into their human skin suits, and we get to see a lot of them here in a minute. Back to the Baphomet brazier, which was featured at the beginning and kind of all throughout this movie in different parts. Baphomet is actually more of a symbol of balance than it is evil or good. Like a lot of times it's half goat, half man, half woman, like lots of different things. And we're back to probably Astaroth, or the devil, or whatever. I just still love the makeup effects here. I love this as a GIF. I love just sitting here staring, deeply longing into his eyes. According to Aleister Crowley, Baphomet was sort of a union of order and chaos. This is another symbol that I need y'all's help for. I looked through so many different charts, and I'm just not able to identify which particular symbol this is, so please put it in the comments. Maleficus basically means wicked or evil. Pretty simple implications there. We're about to have some Latin, Facilis descensus averno, which basically means the descent to hell is easy. The implication there is that it's easy to always find the downward path, and it takes the upright person to keep on walking. We're back to them having just a good old time, and then dropping it into these very still frames of the black and white couple that is being horribly abused. We're still lacking a little bit of context for what the final game is here. Bet you can't guess whose sigil that is. There we go. This is when I started having doubts in the sisters' abilities, when some of these pages seemed so sort of just fan fiction style of what you would think Satanism type stuff would be like. Next one is demonium, and I'm not entirely sure what that means because it's not really a word. I'm guessing it's kind of like pandemonium and all that. It's just for dramatic effect, meaning lots of demons ahead as they enter level 3. I thought there was going to be stuff on the windshield here, but I think that is just random stuff about the car being sold. This is what happens when you stare too deep into the abyss. You start thinking that every little thing is something. And these background motions, I was not able to decipher what's happening, but there's obviously something composited over. So if you have any theories, please let me know. I tried to even change the colors and couldn't find anything. Y'all should be real grateful for that censor bar right now. I believe that he is fornicating with that dead deer. And now we're back to the brazen Baphomet, which is apparently just full-on rockin'. It's one of the weirder phallic things that I've ever seen on top of any sort of metal sculpture, but they are definitely cooking some dude inside of it, and I absolutely adore these angles right now. It just looks so good. And then there's Astaroth's symbol again, which appears up to 170 times in this movie if you count it frame by frame. These are some of the scenes where it just doesn't hold up all that well, but this sigil looks great inside of that. It's once again one that I cannot identify. It's bothering me because so many of these sigils just don't match up with exact demonic sigils. It almost seems like combinations. While I'm giving this description, I'm also showing you some of these little demons running through the woods, which look a little bit cheesy whenever you slow it down, not gonna lie. Some of them also look like my Spider Noir cosplay. I feel like these scenes are important because crossing the river a lot of times is a point of no return. It's where you've actually put your soul completely at hazard. And we start seeing things moving under the water, kind of indistinct but humanoid shapes, which would be like in the river Styx. Here we have more Latin, cave ab homine unum libre, and it means fear the man of only one book. This is Aquinas' way of saying that if you really sharpen your skills on one single thing, you will be far superior to others in that particular field. I'm sure he means the Bible, but I think it has a bigger general meaning. Astaroth! Now we're seeing the chains of Cerberus, which the dog is loose now and on the hunt. Considering these are scratched onto the film, that is some skill work for how tiny it is. We're starting to see that these kids may have been brought to the forest by these forces a little bit prior, like the dog might have even been influenced. That's probably Astaroth's hand, although it is very much posed like Baphomet. If you're wondering why I think it's Astaroth, it's right here, whenever they put the mark directly over his face. Also, Astaroth seems sort of to be gender neutral in a lot of different lore, so it can change a bit. At this point, the child has been marked by Astaroth, and all the nefarious things that can happen to him will happen. At this point, I just wanted to see some different sigils. I thought that this one might have been the mark of Lucifer, but I think under further scrutiny, it's just more Astaroth. I'm slowing these next two down a little bit longer than is necessary. You can see that her eye is very messed up, there's something on her head, and said, "It is coming." But these happen so fast on the film that it's very easy to miss. Incarnatus est metis basically means fear in the skin, or fear in the flesh. Now we're transferring back to some demonic fun with Astaroth here, just in the sun. I'm pretty sure it's a composite of the other shots that I've shown you so far, but here we are. And now we get some bloody Astaroth on the screen. Now we're transitioning into more of a conceptual thing where we're getting Cerberus with the 3 dog heads. Not exactly the most thrilling or pungent animation I've ever seen in my life, but for the sake of this movie, it'll be fine. We're seeing the pair of demons in their camp and at the Antrum site. So the children have been spotted, and I just wanted to give you guys another look at these two and the standoff that's happening. We saw earlier that the kid had a magic wand, and this has all just gone to hell for them. And Astaroth. That eye is so gooey, she should really get that looked at. Now we've got them tied together doing the duct tape thing, lots of blood everywhere. This couple has seen much, much better days. Once again, these are very, very brief clips that I've extended out, think around 2 seconds. More Latin. Nihil pretiosius verite. The closest literal translation is most precious truth, but generally it's part of a longer saying. The saying is truth is hidden, but there is nothing more precious than the truth. The Astaroth signs are coming fast and quick here, so I'm not covering every single one of them. But we are entering into their lair now, and I'm sorry that you have to suffer this angle with me. In truth, I was looking for hidden things here, didn't see much, but if I had to deal with it, then you had to deal with it. It's now time for the child to be put into the brazen Baphomet, which is one of the most hellish inventions that I could ever think of, as you are slowly seared inside of this thing, and you just kind of hope that you suffocate, because if you're touching the walls, you're searing. And of course we've got more Astaroth here. Flashing back to this couple, it's starting to feel like they are a direct analog for what's happening with the children on the other side. Although this is very different, where they're being forced into possible self-harm. With this one, it's like, are they under the influence of a demon? Are they the one making them fire the shell, or did they actually fire the shell? And in her fury, she's not going to be the one that just sits idly by and doesn't do anything about it. And there's 4 different Astaroth symbols right there. Abysses is another word for hell, for the pit, for the abyss, however you want to talk about it. The hand model they got for this did such a perfect job. I really just want to know what it's like to be caressed by a demon hand. And for the record, no, I really don't. Astaroth! I bet it would be like getting a stranger from someone with an oil slick on their hand. It'd be awful. We're back to the child going into the woods after Cerberus, despite the fear and pain and kind of putting your life at risk that would probably happen. But considering he's doing this for the soul of his dog, that's the entire reason they're in the forest, it makes sense that this would be what he would do. And of course, Cerberus is just a basic husky. Nothing like his dog, nothing like another one, but the dog is definitely messed up in a bear trap. Even though this isn't his dog, I think that this is giving him salvation, and possibly giving his dog salvation because he's helping this animal, this creature, get out of the forest. He's able to find that closure because he knows that he actually helped. At this point, the kid is actually starting to look like some of these demons with just how caked over in dirt and soot he actually is. And what you're about to see is an absolute lie, and I'm not even sure why they added it here to call this the end when there's so much more of the movie left. It's just dumb. We can see the Delta return very briefly here. Then it becomes a bit more overt. After pulsing for a decent amount of time, we get to see a few more sigils, and it kind of just turns back into a movie. And we couldn't go more than a few frames without another one of those. And at this point, the Delta is basically burned into the film and onto the screen, and I'm still trying to figure out if that just means change, if it's like the mark of the devil. Also, we're getting to see a few more of these demons up close. I've slowed down a lot of the footage so you can get a clear view of what they look like. And this is about as clear as I was able to find for their full-on faces. I included this next part because we actually get to see the hole that they're digging. It looked like it was surrounded by some sort of fungus. I'm not 100% sure. Even with zoom in, it just looked like little mushrooms. With all of these demons and just everything so overtly clear at this point, it's definitely a tonal shift in the way the movie worked. There was just no going back for her. And Astaroth. Inside the pit, we're looking at the different symbols, like there's the Islamic symbol, Astaroth over the top of it, and just the kind of muddy pit that it's become. I'd be willing to bet that those aren't offering any sort of protection any longer. Also, we're seeing these flashes of sunlight, basically where the barrel is, little visions of demons in there, another few Astaroth symbols just charging through the screen. There's a lot happening in the sequences she's hiding in the tent. At full speed, this is a pretty good space to have a seizure. It's just constant. It's bad. I love seeing just the demons in the background, the out of focus, the show us something but don't quite ruin everything aspect of this movie. It's one of my favorite things about it. And now we're actually given the reveal on what happened to these people. We see that gun come into frame. We know that it is basically the end for these two. They've been sobbing the whole time, and now they're just in a wreck on the floor. There's some strange deformities here that are sort of phallic on his hand. I can't exactly see what is happening here. And after all that, we're actually to the end of the film portion of the movie before it starts talking about things that happen in the credits, gets back to the documentary side of things. I feel like there's some symbols in here, but I slowed down a lot and most of them were pretty innocuous. I couldn't find much. I am, however, leaving in, so if any of you guys notice anything, you can inform the comments. I'd love to be proved wrong on many of these things. I will not take offense if you've got corrections. Well, you've watched my sort of analysis of Antrum, its sigils, and its demons in its entirety anyway. I just want to thank you guys for watching this far. I don't know if this is the type of video that we're going to be doing much of, but I really had a lot of fun breaking this down and getting really granular. Here's some cool stuff in the credits that they're showing about how those scratches would be made on the film and just how it all kind of lines up. If you enjoy this or you have some movies that are layered deep with these sorts of things, please put them in the comments. I really want to know about them. Lastly, hit that sub button, and we will talk to you soon with more from Human Echoes.